What's good, Atlanta? This is the Blog and Dirty Podcast, where Dirty Bird is the word if you haven't heard. I'm your host, John Buhler, lead writer, fansided.com. Coming to you guys live the day before the 2025 NFL draft. Right now, the Atlanta Falcons have 5 picks. They do not have their third round pick, which belongs to New England Patriots because of the Matthew Judon trade. And they do not have their fifth round pick for the tampering that they did with Kirk Cousins, Charlie Warner, and Darnell Mooney. But we've got our first, we've got our second, we've got our fourth, and we got a loaded show for you today. So, I'm coming to you guys live from another place where my girlfriend and I dog sit. So if a train rolls by, we don't want that, but we'll make the best of it because clearly all of Atlanta is really excited about the 2025 NFL draft. So let's get started with our first topic here. Let's have another slice of pumpkin pie. It's all filler and no killer when you're living in the world of pumpkin pie filling enthusiast Mel Kiper Jr. Yeah, he eats that stuff year round. Almost swore there. But what is the very latest on where the Atlanta Falcons could be leaning with number 15 overall pick? I've done some research. I've looked at it. I've crowdsourced. It seems as though conventional wisdom says, yes, the Falcons are going to be looking for an edge rusher, whether that be an outside linebacker or a defensive end at number 15. There have been the same handful of candidates we've seen all offseason long since we've had this pick, since we've known our needs. But I'm going to kind of go through it real quick and say who I think it could be, who I don't think it will be, and then ultimately make a pick with what I think is going to happen. So first things first, it's not going to be a defensive back. I think the likes of Will Johnson out of Michigan, he's going to be off the board before Atlanta's picking at 15. I don't think the Falcons have the stones to trade up with that little draft capital at this point. And Bijan Morrison's really fallen off of late. I know that the Falcons are very high on Maxwell Hairston out of Kentucky. He may be attending the draft. Maybe that's a guy that we trade back to get, but I think he's more of a second-round pick that the Falcons could be targeting somewhere inside the 40s. So that's kind of where I'm leaning with those two players. As far as my Georgia guys, whether that would be, Jalen Walker out on the edge, Mykel Williams out on the edge, and even Malachi Starks out there at safety. Again, I think Starks may not be off the board before the Falcons are picking at 15. I think he may go to a team like the Dolphins at 13, the Colts at 14. He may fall to the Vikings at 24. I just don't think the Falcons have the urgency to take a safety right now. Even if Starks is potentially the next Jesse Bates, the third, we already have Jesse Bates. Why do we need a redundancy at this point? We're the Falcons. As far as Jalen Walker is concerned, I think the Salisbury, North Carolina native is probably going to go to the Carolina Panthers and make our lives a living hell for the next decade. It serves Carolina to take a player of Walker's caliber, of his versatility, particularly with Dan Morgan as the new GM of the Panthers. Again, he's a former linebacker, former Panthers and Miami Hurricanes star. He's going to want a guy that's going to be a movable chess piece. And in a way, I kind of trust the Carolina staff to do more with him, with Ehiro Evero as their DC, than I do with what our current operation is. More importantly, if the Panthers pass on Jalen Walker, we have to take him because maybe the Buccaneers get in and then we look stupid. Again, I think it's a bit of game theory here with that regard. So I think Walker's probably coming off the board at 8. I'd be stunned if he was there for us at 15, but you never know. Even though I did pick Mykel Williams for the Falcons at number 15 in Fall Starts NFL mock snake draft with my boss.com colleague, Cody Williams, content director on Monday, that's kind of more of wishful thinking for me. I was kind of looking at the likes of Mike Green and Shamar Stewart as well, the edge rusher out of Marshall, edge rusher out of A&M. And I went with Mykel Williams because I thought, again, we don't know what we're doing at this position. It's become a laughing joke that the Falcons have no pass rush. Haven't really had one since John Abraham left. Maybe that 1 year of Vic Beasley. But again, I kind of feel that the Mykel Williams, if there's a Georgia player there and it's all things equal, you take him because it's a softer landing if he fails. Whereas if Mykel Williams were to succeed somewhere else, like say the Bengals at 17, or, the Lions or the Commanders further down the draft board. But again, I think Michael Williams not going to the NFL draft in Green Bay signifies that he may not be coming off the board as early as I think. I think the fact that he got hurt with Phil Maffa hurting his ankle in the Aflac kickoff game on Labor Day versus Clemson, that kind of leaves not as much tape on there to be had as other prospects. So he may come down further on the board. I think taking it at 15 is about as early as you could go. But again, maybe you trade back and get him. But at 15, I don't know if that's really the right value play for us. And that leads us with the three people that I think that the Falcons could conceivably take at 15. I think it's going to either be Mike Green out of Marshall, it's going to be Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M, or potentially it's going to be Donovan Ezeruoku out of Boston College. The last guy, I've just learned how to say his name because I understand that he might be coming to the Falcons. But I think that he's maybe coming off the board later. I would say of those three guys, between Green, between Stewart, and Ezeruoku, Green is most likely to come off the board early. I don't think he makes it past the Bengals picking at 17. The big thing with Green that the positive thing is he really shined at a place like Marshall, a really good group of five program, did very well at the Senior Bowl. Then again, he did play at the group of five, and he apparently has some off the field concerns. Again, I don't know all the details with that. I just know that it is something to consider. That may make a team that has not necessarily hit it out of the park with this position group in recent drafts. That may make the Falcons reticent, but that's also within play as well. I would say that Shamar Stewart has a lot of upside. People are saying, "Oh my God, he's the next Myles Garrett coming out of Texas A&M," but where's the production? I mean, I didn't really know much about him, and I cover the SEC very closely. So again, I'm a little apprehensive on that one. As far as Donovan Ezeruoku is concerned, I think he's kind of a late comer to this. I think the fact that he's played for two NFL coaches, whether that be Jeff Hafley, the defensive coordinator for the Packers, or Bill O'Brien this past year in BC, intrigues me. The Falcons have had a great run of success drafting Boston College players. Matt Ryan, Chris Lindstrom. You're talking about the greatest player in franchise history and the most talented player on our team right now. I think at 15 is a little rich. If you can trade back a little bit, let's say you get into a deal with the Broncos picking at 20, then maybe you go in that direction. I think that would be something to consider as well. I think I wrote about this earlier. Atlanta is one of the more likely teams in the first round to trade back, along with the Minnesota Vikings at 24. The Falcons and Vikings need draft capital. Denver supposedly wants to trade up, but there's not a lot of movers there. I don't think that they can go ahead of Dallas at 12 because they may want a running back. But Ashton Jeanty is probably not going to be there, and we'll see what happens if Omarion Hampton's there. I would take Omarion Hampton at 20, but if you think that somebody else wants him, then maybe you trade with the Falcons. We get some other pick. We take Ezeruoku at 20, Michael Williams at 20, Shamar Stewart at 20, Mike Green at 20. Maybe just get to 20. That would be ideal. Pick up another pick, and I think that also helps us out a little bit. I've also seen rumors that James Pierce Jr., again, another guy that has character concerns, another guy that was a top 5 consensus pick at the start of last year, has really fallen off a bit. He could be the pick. Again, I'm gearing up for the fact that the Falcons take him at 15 and completely ruin my night tomorrow. But we'll see what happens. If I'm going to make a pick, here's basically what I'm going to say. If it's at 15 right now, I'm going to take Mike Green out of Marshall and try to come on board with it. I'm not a fan of the pick. That's what I think is going to happen. If we trade back to 20, I think there's a chance trade back to 20 or somewhere beyond that. I would love for it to be Donovan Ezeruoku. I'm okay with the idea that it's Shamar Stewart, and I'm kind of opening up to the idea of it being James Pierce Jr., although I don't really want that to happen. That's a day 2 pick. So that's kind of where I'm looking at this with the Falcons at 15. Again, there also may be some conversations about what is to come with Kirk Cousins, and we're going to do that with some You Like That here. Almost led the topic with this show, but here's the latest on what is to come with Cousins in the draft. How does the Easton Stick signing impact everything that follows? And Cousins also apparently showed up to the first day of the offseason program. I wrote an article for fanside.com earlier this morning. You should definitely check it out. This comes on the news and intel coming from Diana Russini of The Athletic. She reported that there are 3 teams who are vying for Cousins right now in the trade market. That would be the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Minnesota Vikings, and the Cleveland Browns. Pittsburgh remains the favorite to get him because right now they just have Mason Rudolph under contract. They've looked at the likes of Aaron Rodgers coming in. He's not so certain about playing, whereas Cousins is definitely wants to play because he wants to start. So Pittsburgh is definitely the front runner there. I also wrote about this for fanside.com yesterday with I don't think he should waive his no trade clause to go back to the Vikings. I think it's a bad look for everybody. It basically, by bringing Cousins back into the building, it almost certainly guarantees that Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah will not be the general manager next year for the Vikings because it's truly mea culpa. It says that, you rubbed Cousins the wrong way. You had to give something back to get him. And then J.J. McCarthy is not ready. Again, I'm probably the biggest J.J. McCarthy hater out there in the sports media world. I think he's just Zach Wilson 2.0. I think there's a better version of him in college and Drew Aller. And even then, I don't think Drew Aller is going to be the first quarterback taken in 26 out of Penn State. So, again, the Vikings are there. The fact that they've not officially been crossed off intrigues me a ton because that creates more leverage for the Falcons to potentially trade Cousins. And then I would also say the Browns coming back is a surprise. I think I thought that when they got Joe Flacco, they're like, okay, this means we're not in the Cousins sweepstakes anymore. By doing this and having your name in there, maybe this is driving up the price to get the Steelers to pay the Falcons more or take on more of the money. Pretty good game theory there by Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski. Again, I don't think the Browns are going to be paying a lot for a quarterback because they still got Deshaun Watson under contract for this year next. He's got the injury thing. It's too punitive to cut him. It's the same thing with Derek Carr and the Saints. You're looking for the teams to probably move on for them ahead of the 26 NFL offseason. But Cousins knows Kevin Stefanski. I mean, that was his original offensive coordinator in Minnesota. They had a lot of success there. This would be an opportunity where I think Cousins is better than Joe Flacco, but maybe they value them the same. I also think the fact that Joe Flacco's contract incentives were okay, we're going to give you $4 million, possibly up to 13. That may be indicative of what the Falcons were willing to eat. They're going to have to eat a lot of this. And that also brings up something that I'm going to get to later in our next segment. But they're trying to make this thing look more like the Baker Mayfield deal between the Browns and the Carolina Panthers versus, what happened between the Denver Broncos and the Steelers with Russell Wilson. They want the other team to take on as much of the salary as they possibly can, particularly in the event that the Falcons end up drafting more than 5 players. The cap situation is not bad, but it could be improved greatly if they were to pivot off of Cousins. Again, there's a lot of dead money involved here. This is all part of the plan, supposedly. You're not paying Penix a lot, but at the same time, there's a lot of money being used on a player that's not going to play for you. So you wonder if that's really the best allocation of assets. Everybody has the same amount of assets at one point. It just comes down to, the decisions you make. Frankly, we don't make the best decisions. We make decisions. Just because we make them doesn't mean we're good at them. And this is the Blogging Nerdy podcast. Okay. As far as the Easton Stick signing is concerned, this is significant. Again, I wrote about this for fanside.com yesterday. It's the clearest indication to me that Cousins is probably going to get traded because I was looking for okay, if you trade him, who's your backup for Penix? I wanted it to be Jameis Winston all offseason, but he signed with the Giants. Maybe he gets cut. Doesn't matter. I thought he'd fit the vibe of Atlanta pretty good. But Easton Stick, again, this is a former star at North Dakota State. He's the guy that's kind of in between, I think, Carson Wentz and Trey Lance. And he's been with the Chargers for a while. I think that there's definitely I think our tight ends coach was with the Chargers too. I'm blanking on his name. Koger, I think, whatever. But the point is there's some connection to Easton Stick bringing him to Atlanta. I don't know how much that helps our quarterback room at all. But you got a guy that won a lot in college who's been part of an interesting organization there in Los Angeles. And again, this is less of a threat. This is a guy that's going to be in the room helping get the most out of Michael Penix Jr. versus Penix has a bad game. Okay, do we put Cousins back in there? I don't think that that's really what we're going to be trying to do here. My point is signing him basically gives us, even more of an indicator that Cousins is probably out of the door. That being said, apparently Cousins showed up to the first day of the offseason program. Kevin Knight of the Falcoholic, I put this out there pretty interestingly, and I hadn't considered this. I think all the hoopla and all the animus that we've seen out of Cousins' camp this offseason, that may be from his representation, because I think deep down Cousins is still a likable, team first kind of guy. Like he's not in the NFL making all this money if he didn't do that. He was unheralded coming out of high school, 2-star recruit at Michigan State, 4th-round pick, got drafted by Washington in the same draft as Robert Griffin III, the Heisman Trophy winner from the year prior, who went number 2 overall to them. Washington want to pay him all that money. They tagged him twice. He goes to the Vikings. The Vikings want to draft his successor. The Falcons did draft his successor. So there's always kind of been some level of chip on Kirk Cousins' shoulder. It's what's made him good, and it's also contributed to why he's been a Hall of Very good player, but not a Hall of Fame level player. I think the other thing here is maybe the Falcons just getting some medicals before they make this trade. It's like, yeah, come in here, see what you got, and we'll see, if we can clear you for a trade, whatever this comes. Again, he has to waive his no trade clause. So the other thing that Diane Rossini put out there is it's probably going to come on Saturday at the end of the draft. It's not going to come earlier. So the idea here is, let's say, for example, the Falcons trade Cousins on Friday, after the first round. Okay, the Browns, the Steelers, the Vikings didn't draft a quarterback. Vikings obviously aren't. Browns don't at 2, Steelers don't at 21. Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart are playing elsewhere. Well, what if one of them falls to day 2 and the Steelers or Browns pick them? What if one of them ends up taking Jalen Milroe out of Alabama or Quinn Ewers out of Texas? Okay, then that makes sense. Then the Cousins like, okay, I'm not going there. And then you get to the day 3. What happens if one of them takes Dylan Gabriel out of Oregon? What if one of them takes Kyle McCord out of Syracuse? What if one of them takes Tyler Shuck out of Tyler Shuck? I was so good at saying that name, and then I messed up. Out of Louisville. I don't think he's that good. Will Howard out of Ohio State. They're Riley Leonard out of Notre Dame. You get what I'm saying, right? I don't think anybody beyond Ewers is really a threat to take the starting job from Cousins, but you never know. I think Howard has a lot of upside. I think McCord does too. Those are really the sleepers in this draft at quarterback for me personally. But I think once the dust is settled and they've kind of got a feeling about where they're going to go, then maybe Cousins is like, okay, let's make it. I can waive my no trade clause. Terry Fontenot can make it happen. They'll get some compensation in 2026. I'm of the belief that Fontenot has an offer or two out there to make a trade. It's contingent on the other team not taking a pick. Again, Atlanta seems comfortable with having him on the roster, and there may be a point where Penix gets hurt. Maybe Cousins goes in there and plays, but they're not going to be the aggressor here. That's everybody else. And I think there will be a team that will be aggressive to get Kirk Cousins. We're just going to have to wait and see on that. And speaking of eating money and being aggressive, let's put another dude in our team, bro. CBS Sports, Jonathan Jones has tied Jalen Ramsey to the Falcons, as well as the Las Vegas Raiders, and a potential deal with the Miami Dolphins. It's going to be a lot of money to take on a potentially declining player, you will, in Ramsey. Again, Jalen Ramsey has been tied to the Falcons, not necessarily because we have a huge need at defensive back. I would say that that's our strength of our defense with Jesse Bates III, with A.J. Terrell, with Mike Hughes, who got a 3-year, $18 million extension, with Clark Phillips III, bringing D. Alford back. They're going to compete for a job. You bring in Ramsey effectively to offset losing Justin Simmons in free agency whenever he does sign. Although they play different positions, you get what I'm saying. The big thing here is it's all about Jalen Ramsey's connection to Raheem Morris. Again, Morris was his defensive coordinator when the LA Rams, when they won a Super Bowl together. The other thing you have to remember about Jalen Ramsey is he's never anywhere for very long. I don't think he's been anywhere for more than 4 years. That may have been in high school in Nashville. Only played 3 years at Florida State. Played about 3.5 years for the Jaguars. About that amount of time with the Rams, maybe a year or two with the Dolphins. The Dolphins are entering a very critical point. It looks as though as general manager Chris Greer, head coach Mike McDaniel, and Tua Tagovailoa are all kind of on the hot seat. They gave Tua all that money. I don't know why. That's going to be a really bad contract for the Dolphins to move if he can't play anymore or isn't good. I think Ramsey kind of wants out of Dodge. I think he sees the Falcons potentially as an ascending team. I think he would fit in very well with us in terms of being very ATL. I'd love to have him here. I think he'd be a fantastic player for us. Also, the fact he idolized Deion Sanders, who is a Atlanta Falcons legend. That's why he went to FSU. I mean, also, the Knolls were really, really good there at the tail end of the Jimbo Fisher era there in Tallahassee about a decade ago. As far as the Raiders are concerned, I mean, it's Pete Carroll. I mean, Pete Carroll and Patrick Graham's a really strong defensive coordinator, a guy that Pete Carroll kept, a guy who may be a future head coach, a guy who was a finalist for the Jaguars job that ultimately went to Liam Cohen. I could see Ramsey going to either place. He also fits the vibe of Raiders. He's the ultimate rebel. He looked really good in silver and black. He looked really good in red and black. It's kind of hard to see him in teal. But I think the biggest thing that I saw from Jonathan Jones's reporting is the Dolphins are comfortable with eating the bulk of his salary. Again, like he's got a contract that is going to kick in here soon. I think he's on the books until he's 35. I think he's about 30, 31. It kicks up this year. The other team may have to make space, but I think it's kind of more of like, okay, you're going to eat a lot of this contract in 25, maybe in 26. We'll see. This is all about clearing some cap space. And I think that that's why both parties are trying to work together to make this trade happen. Ramsey wants to go to a better situation than what he's at now in Miami. Miami wants to clear up some capital ahead of what will probably be another rebuild for the team. The Tyreek Hill thing is just kind of a bad look. I can understand why other people want out. But like, if the Dolphins are eating the bulk of the money, then I think it allows you to eat the bulk of the money with Kirk Cousins. You know, you pick up a draft pick, you give another draft pick to Ramsey, you effectively upgrade your team without moving that much money around. We'll see where the draft pick inevitably goes, whether it's ours going to Miami, whether it's the one we get from the Browns, Steelers, or Vikings from Cousins to Miami. But like, if you're effectively to swap out Cousins for Ramsey, I could get behind that because that allows, Penix to be on the field and playing a game and allows Ramsey to be on the field and playing a game. And I think that makes our team better. I think having a guy who knows exactly what Raheem Morris wants to do defensively will help. I think he'd be a great teammate, really help Jeff Ulbrich on that side of the ball as well. I think he'd jive a lot with Bates and AJ Terrell. Having a hard time talking today. It's Donovan Ezeruoku. That's the one that's been throwing a wrench in all this for me. Just can't pronounce anything out of the draft. I'm so excited. So very excited. I don't know what to do with my hands today. But yeah, I think that Jalen Ramsey of the Falcons is a lot more promising than what the odds indicate. It's all about finance, but I think that this wrinkle of the Dolphins being able to eat a lot of this bodes very well for Atlanta's chances to potentially get him. So let's move on to the second half of our show with some draft-centric stuff. Let's talk to you from the highest perch of Flowery Branch. What kind of spin should we expect to be coming out of the Falcons front office after the draft? I'm just preparing you for the inevitable, guys. This is going to happen. You got to ask yourself, what is Terry Fontenot and what is Raheem Morris going to say after the draft on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and into the week? I think what we're going to see is the Falcons are going to take someone rather controversial with their first-round pick to improve their pass rush. And the worst part in all this is I think outside of Jalen Walker, I don't think there's any player in that's an edge rusher that everybody is like, okay, let's get him. The problem is he's not going to be there at 15. If he is and we don't take him, we're going to lose our effing mind. But whether you're talking about Mike Green, whether you're talking about Shamar Stewart, James Pierce, Donovan Ezeruoku, Mykel Williams, Nick Scourton, if you will, JTT, Jack Sawyer, like there's going to be dissension about every guy that we take because it's not going to be a draft where like, okay, that's the right move. But then again, you got to remember every pick the Falcons have made under Terry Fontenot has been under scrutiny. Kyle Pitts over Justin Fields. That was just a bad draft. You look at Drake London. Again, I was not a fan of that pick. I thought he was injury prone coming out of USC, didn't play for a winning team. First wide receiver taken in a deep wide receiver draft. Again, I was proven wrong. Bijan Robinson's been great. Jalen Carter also in a pick later to the Eagles, and he's a Super Bowl champion, and we haven't made the playoffs, but we did beat the Eagles last year. Again, I don't think there's a lot of questions about that pick. And obviously, we all lived through the Penix pick last year. You could definitely go watch on the YouTube channel here at Blogging Dirty FS and see me and Sports Illustrated's Ian McMillan reacting to that pick in real time. We're going to have him back on the show. Again, he's moved back to Canada, so we'll get him on here later. The moving process going from New York to, I think, Toronto, Halifax, wherever he's from, like, we'll get him back on the show in the offseason. Again, I'm taking some PTO next week, so I will be not coming to you immediately after this draft. It'll be next Friday, and it'll be probably the same time. I'll have a little more time to think about what I'm going to say here. So that's just some upkeep here for you guys here. I'll probably mention that at the end of the show as well. But like, they're going to put some spin on it. The Falcons are definitely going to put some spin on it for what they take there at edge rusher. I think there will also be some stuff about, the decision to move on from Cousins, the decision to acquire Cousins and whatnot. There'll be questions about the draft compensation we got for him. Did we get enough? Did we eat too much of the salary? That may be kept on the back burner to keep face, if you will. And then, it'll be interesting to say, okay, why do we trade up? We don't have any picks. Do we make the right decisions getting all these picks? Again, in my lifetime, I don't really recall the Falcons trading down. Maybe they have, maybe they will, but that just hasn't been their forte. They've been more likely to trade up because they don't know what they're doing. But I can see every pick, every decision that the Falcons make will have been calculated. And I hope that Terry Fano has put more time into making his draft as opposed to figuring out what he's going to defend what he's doing. Raheem Morris may give us a little more clarity. I don't think he's going to be as much of a talking head in all this, but I think that they'll probably be in alignment here. I think, again, alignment is very important with this team moving forward. Whether or not we believe it, that's not up to us. As long as the people in that building believe it, then I think we may see a good product for once. So there will be spin. There will be stuff that'll probably make us mad. And that'll lead me to the next topic here, our penultimate one. We're going to blow the whistle. Obviously, I do not want to blow the whistle today because a train may go by, but we're going to blow the whistle here. Will Dirty Bird Nation come out of the 2025 draft feeling more positive about the Atlanta Falcons? Blow the whistle, no. I want to blow the whistle, yes. I don't want to train. I don't want to train today. So blow the whistle, no, because, again, it comes from this point. Unless the Falcons take Jalen Walker at 15, there's not going to be a player that they take in the first round that everybody's going to be on board with. And even then, like, Walker's kind of positionless. Can we handle that? I think we can. I think the upside's too great. But you look at Mike Green, G5 school, off-field issues. You look at James Pierce Jr., was not as productive last year, may have been built up by Tim Banks' scheme there in Knoxville, off-field issues. Maybe he's a second-round pick. Shamar Stewart, where was the production? Donovan Ezeruku, late bloomer on this draft, and maybe we're reaching on him a little bit. You look at Nick Scourton, he might just be more of a run stuffer like Jadeveon Clowney. Maybe we reached on him there. Michael Williams, where was the production? Could we have gotten him a little bit later? Is he going to be healthy? And then obviously Will Johnson, Maxwell Hairston, I don't think Benjamin Orson's going to us, but like, why didn't we take an edge rusher? That's our primary need. We're not going to come out of this feeling positive, particularly on Thursday night. More importantly, I want us to come out of Saturday feeling positive. I want us to know if we have some sort of resolution on Kirk Cousins. Is he going to be part of this team or not? Did we draft more than just depth defensively? We got to do better than like getting Ruke Herrero, Braylon Trice, Brian Dorless, Nate Bertrand. We got to do better than this. We got to get guys who are going to be starters for this team or rotational players right away. We need some help on defense. We may need offensive tackle for a contingency plan if Jake Matthews retires soon, if Caleb McGarry gets hurt, whatever. We got to get production here, not just in the first round. We got to get that in day 2 and 3. So again, like, I want to come out of it positive. I'm preparing myself for the worst, hoping for the best, because this is what this team's put me through. So no, I don't think that we're going to come out of this feeling particularly great. Again, when I was doing the mock draft for fall start, the Falcons were Again, I had 16 picks. I had 1, 4, 5. No, I had never mind. I had the later ones. I had 2, 3, uh, 6, 7, and we kind of snaked it. And the two hardest picks for me to make were the Falcons at 15 because of emotional ties and what are we doing. I also had a hard time drafting for the Chiefs there at 31 because I don't really know what needs they had. Like I said, I ended up going Michael Williams for the Falcons at 15, and then I ended up going with Nick Scourton 31 out of A&M to the Chiefs. So I don't know what to expect here. This is going to be a very difficult draft for the Falcons. I wish for them the best. I am preparing for the worst. Gonna tie a bow on this. I'm gonna move on to our final topic here. We're gonna have a dude remembering some drafts. What are some of my most memorable Atlanta Falcons drafts in my 30 plus years as a fan? I'm timing this right because I don't want a train to go by. It's literally like 30 feet from me. It's unbelievable. It's like Harry Potter staying above like the leaky cauldron with like the underground going by. Like, yeah, that's kind of what we're dealing with, except it's moving like coal and whatnot. So I've been a fan of the Falcons pretty much my entire life. It's been very gradual. Uh, I really became a fan in 1998 with the original Dirty Birds with Jamal Anderson, and my fandom with this team has always been strong. I do think that the tail end of high school, I was kind of doing stuff. The team wasn't very good. The end of Michael Vick, the Bobby Petrino year, that was tough. And then obviously Matt Ryan, my freshman year at Georgia, I'll get drafted the spring of my senior year, playing fall my freshman year at Georgia. I've been kind of all in on this team ever since. So some of my favorite drafts from before. Again, I have distinct memories as a kid, sitting in my the carpeted, sitting on the carpet in my living room, looking at the AJC. It might have been the Atlanta Journal just at that point. I don't know if they had even emerged, but I remember looking at the paper in the sports section. Reading about us getting Keith Brooking out of Georgia Tech, reading about us getting TJ Duckett out of Michigan State, reading about us getting Patrick Kearney out of, I believe he played at Virginia. And all three of those players went on to have great careers for the Falcons. Obviously, Brooking was the best. Kearney had a lot of success. Duckett was part of the DVD Falcons there with work done to Michael Vick. Definitely had a lot of memories of that. The first draft that I really remember following along with was pitch nerve is on fire right now. This is how it goes sometimes. But I distinctly remember in 2001, us trading up from 5-1 in a deal with the then San Diego Chargers to get Michael Vick. Well, the Bolts drafted my favorite running back of all time in LaDainian Tomlinson. Drew Brees went the second round to the Bolts. I just kind of remember getting Michael Vick and just what a phenomenon, what an electrifying player he was at Virginia Tech. There was never anything else quite like him. We talked about, okay, there may have been Slash coming out with Cordell Stewart with Colorado and Pittsburgh. Randall Cunningham, original Weapon X there with the Eagles coming out of UNLV. Just Vic was so different. And that really kind of opened my eyes up to the draft. Move on to 2004. Getting a fellow Virginia Tech guy, D'Angelo Hall at cornerback. He played with a lot of flair that Vic did in Blacksburg. Potentially a Mount Rushmore candidate in the history of Virginia Tech football with Vic, with Bruce Smith, with Frank Beamer. Didn't play for the Falcons very long. Wanted him to be here for a long time. Just a lot of swagger. Was kind of the closest thing I saw to Deion Sanders. Ray Buchanan had a little bit of that too. Desmond Trufant wasn't the jar as much, but you kind of want a mouthy cornerback. I love D'Angelo Hall, which he could have played here his entire career. Had a lot of success there with Washington. Really good player. Then kind of moving on a little bit there with the draft and everything like that. I distinctly remember some bad drafts. I remember 2007, us taking Jamal Anderson with 2 A's out of Arkansas. I was like, I don't agree with this. I don't think this is good. This may have been a Mike Zimmer pick. He's like, okay, Bobby, we need to get this guy. So Arkansas hurting the Falcons in this era in back-to-back years. Jamal Anderson being a terrible pick, and the Bobby Petrino going from the Falcons to Arkansas a year later. Really, that was kind of my first example of man, this was just not a good pick. And I kind of knew it in the moment too. Obviously, with '08 the next year, you take Matt Ryan at number 3 overall out of Boston College. You take Sam Baker, David Baker's son, out of USC. Wasn't particularly healthy, but again, another first-round pick. Thought very highly of those two things. That really set the team up for a lot of success down the line. And then the next year, you just throw up all over yourself with Prey Jerry. You could have had Clay Matthews III. Again, Clay Matthews Jr. played here briefly. What are you doing? And that was another just horrible pick there in '09. I'm like, what are we doing? I think it was '09. Yeah, because 9, 10, 12, 13. He might have been in 10. I can't really recall. The point is, he basically quit on the Falcons during Hard Knocks, the same season that Jake Matthews came in here, and Devontae Freeman did, sitting in his Devontae Freeman size hot tub. Obviously, I remember the first round pick of Julio Jones, trading up to get him in 2011. Somehow we got the Browns at their absolute worst and took advantage of the situation. Again, I was not in favor of this move, but I think along with Matt Ryan, it's probably the greatest draft pick Thomas Dimitroff made. I would probably say Jake Matthews and Grady Jarrett are right up there too. But like Julio Jones, the most talented player we've had play for this team, a Mount Rushmore player for sure. Not the best player in Falcons history. That is Matt Ryan with the bullet, not even close. Because Matt Ryan made everybody better. Julio Jones made Matt Ryan really good. There's always that. Kind of moving along a little bit. I remember getting a Desmond Trufant in 13. Not a very good draft for us. Very polished, excellent player. We kind of got replacement Desmond Trufant there with AJ Terrell in 2020 during the COVID draft. That one was weird. Obviously, I remember Jake Matthews at 14. Keanu Neal, really excited about that in 15. Wish he could have stayed healthy. 15 was a really good draft, set us up for a lot of success. I think Deion Jones was in that draft. I think Grady Jarrett was in that draft. 16, not so much. That was the Duke Riley nonsense. I think 16, set in a 17, 16, 17, whatever. I don't remember. Remember Tack McKinley, that being bad. Could have had TJ Watt. JJ Watt was already an established star. Why didn't we take TJ Watt? I'll never understand that. 18, Calvin Ridley, a player that I thought would have been a great fit for us at wide receiver. Obviously, COVID did a number on him. He started gambling on the team. His career hasn't been the same, but his first 2 years with this team, very promising. And then, you're looking kind of more at like what's happened recently. I remember Ridley at 18. 19, we got Chris Lindstrom and Caleb McGarry. We trade back up into that. That's been successful. 2020, AJ Terrell. 21, Kyle Pitts. The rest of that draft sucked. 22 with London. 23 with Bijan Robinson. 24 with Penix. That's kind of where I've gotten here. Remembered a lot of drafts. But here's probably to tie a bow on this, because we're coming up on 40 minutes on the show. Train's not coming. Pitch nerve's on fire. There's probably a dog downstairs that wants some food, even though I just fed her. It's life. Everybody wants my attention. Maybe yours. We'll see what happens. I always like the NFL draft because it provides a level of hope to all 32 fan bases. It's been one of the things that's made, like, the Detroit Lions fans love the draft. New York Jets fans love the draft. Cleveland Browns fans love the draft because their teams usually suck. But there's also teams like the Rams who don't take the draft very seriously. It's kind of a tough time to be a fan of that team this time of year. There's always one. Back in the day, Washington didn't care about the draft either. That was more under Joe Gibbs, maybe both iterations of his tenure leading the team. But from a Falcons perspective, I always kind of feel that we are more likely than not to hit on our first round pick. Where we get killed is in day 2. There's just not a lot of guys that I remember in day 2 that have gone on to be like great players for us. Like Robert Alford was pretty good for a while. You get what I'm saying. I think Vic Beasley at 15. Yeah, that's another. I tried to forget that draft pick in the first round. We get smoked in day 2 and 3. We put so much effort and focus in the first round that we just don't have it, whatever it is, on that Friday. And I think that's where a lot of teams make their hay. I want there to be more players on this team that have been hits, whether that would be an Audrey Crumpler, whether that would have been Drew Dahlman. Maybe you bring those guys back. Austin Hooper, where are those guys? We need more picks like that down the line. again, when you're hitting like in the 5th round on Grady Jarrett, that's credit to you and you doing your homework because that's not what's expected. But where we get killed is just rounds 2, 3, and 4. We're just not getting starting level players. We're getting guys that's very early on, like, oh, dude can't play. And that hurts us considerably because better run teams get Pro Bowlers there. Great teams get Hall of Famers player. And we're the Atlanta Falcons. That's a lot of fun. A lot of stuff to talk about today. Be sure to watch, like, comment, and subscribe to the Blog and Dirty podcast on YouTube. You can follow me, John Buhler, on Twitter or the X at Buhler118. You can read all of my content there on fanside.com. Again, I cover the NFL, college football, and the Atlanta Braves mostly. Do a little bit of other stuff too, but that's kind of my areas of expertise. You can read all the stuff there on bloganddirty.com. For the Atlanta Falcons, you can read all the stuff on our regional betting website, ATL All Day. They do a great job there too. Again, my first site with Fanside. I've been here for a decade now. Be sure to follow along. Hit that subscribe button right down there on YouTube at Blog and Dirty FS. And again, I'm going to be also give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Really helps the show grow. So a little bit more upkeep before I log off for the day. Again. NFL draft is tomorrow. I'm going to be going on Stacking the Box during their live stream. Going to be on there for a few picks around when the Falcons pick at 15, maybe a little bit before, a little bit after, kind of following along with the draft. No idea what's going to happen, but it's going to be great. Once the draft has reached its conclusion, be ready for this to show up in your inbox, or go follow False Start at CFB False Start. Cody Williams and I will be doing 3 yards in a cloud of punt on that show. We're going to recap the college football draft for more of a national scope. He'll probably have a reaction to who his Dallas Cowboys take at 12, as well with the Falcons at 15. But again, we're kind of covering the whole first round there. I'm going to be taking some well-deserved PTO off next week. So I will be not doing this show until next Friday. I'll have some reactions to that. Will not be on False Start on Monday. We'll be back on Thursday. Doing some in sync on Jalen because it's going to be May. But yeah, I've just been grinding through this. It's been a really long time coming. Football season, you can't stop, won't stop. A lot of dog sitting, so much dog sitting. Girlfriend changing jobs. I get it promoted. Weddings. People just want to hang out with me because apparently we're really cool. But I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you guys so much. I appreciate the fact that we're rapidly approaching 300 followers there on YouTube. I'll probably do something fun with that. I'm not going to dress up for 300. I refuse to watch that movie because the guy in my high school would not stop talking about it. That and The Departed. We'll never watch it. This guy ruined it for me. Thanks, Jack. But yeah, going to wrap the show up here right now. Really excited for the draft coming up tomorrow. Preparing for the worst, hoping for the best. Once again, thanks for listening, and this is the Blog and Dirty podcast.